are you? Thank you.
Good. I let you into the meeting room, but we're gonna wait at least another minute since it's a publicly noticed meeting.
I understand. Maybe I can take this time. There's a way for me not to just see myself, right?
Right. So in the upper right hand, you can go to gallery view.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, it's 12:30. Let's get started. Mr. Peacock, you have the floor for an opening statement for a couple of minutes if you choose to exercise that right.
I appreciate it. I anticipated that I was just going to use this time to thank the commission for sending my name up to the governor's office for the circuit court spot a couple months ago. I found that experience to be very informative, humbling really, and was encouraged by the governor's staff to apply for this position. So I know I answered the questions a little long last time, so I'll just defer to answering the questions at this point.
All right, Mr. Bear.
Good afternoon, Mr. Peacock. I had the pleasure of vetting you and speaking with a lot of your references that you listed, and a lot of people that I thought would know you that did, and I just have to say unanimously I heard very consistent and good things. So in light of what they told me, I wanted to ask you a couple questions on that. So one of the things I wanted to ask you was about your over your right shoulder. I see you have your old police badges from Michigan, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and so I wanted to ask you how your experience there, overlaid on top of your state attorney experience, would shape how you handle things as a county court judge.
Well, I think my experience as a police officer, when you're on the streets dealing with people before they get into the process, I think you really get a grasp of the real life aspect of what we do in the courtroom and the effect that it has on the citizens that you're dealing with. And so, I hear a lot about, well, county court isn't as important as circuit court. And I totally disagree with that, because the people that are in county court with a driving or a trespass, that may be the only time they've ever come in contact with the police, or their only time that they ever are going to have access to the courts. And I feel that almost that's more important to allow those people to be heard, to be represented, and to have a judge fairly decide their case. So my experience as a law enforcement officer was really that firsthand knowledge of you're starting the process for someone that's going to have a very big impact on the rest of their life.
Here's a quick follow-up question. So in some regards, somebody might look at your history and be like, oh, that guy is perfect for circuit court. That's what he's doing now, like big, high intensity, high sanctions matters. But a lot of what I heard about you and what sort of containing what you just said is that you think a lot about everybody, not just the people that are powerful and important. And so I wanted to ask you why you think that your experiences might be particularly well suited for county court.
Well, really, I think the experiences that I've had make me appropriate for county court, really just for the practice of law. The rules of evidence are the same. Being in the courtroom every day, where you're truly practicing what it takes to be a good trial attorney and present yourself. I believe that is what would make me a good county court judge. And truthfully, when I started this process, I never thought of a difference between a county court judge, a circuit court judge. To me, when you are appointed a judge or elected by the citizens to be a judge, they are putting a public trust into you. you have the same powers. I mean, county court judges are signing search warrants, which allow the police to go into people's houses. So you're still exercising extreme power as a county court judge. And that public trust is the same when the citizens hear that you are a judge. So I don't look at it as being more important, less important. It's being a judge, and that's important to the system and the fairness for all citizens.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ms. Snedeker?
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you. Just to go into that subject a little bit further that Mr. Bear brought up, do you have an opinion as to which position you're more qualified for, whether it be a county or a circuit position? And do you have a preference?
No and no. I don't have a preference. I don't, again, there's some almost misunderstanding, I would assume, when people talk about it, because it almost seems like a more qualified person shouldn't be in county court. But really, when we think about county court, especially from a government standpoint, meaning the public defender's office or the prosecutor's office, that's where our attorneys are starting to learn. That's where they're starting to actually practice law. And I almost believe that a stronger person, a stronger trial attorney, a stronger attorney that's going to guide these attorneys in the start of their career is really very important for our system. And when I had the ability to train misdemeanor attorneys that were starting here at the office, I found it very helpful that the state attorney actually put me into a felony position first, so I could experience the felony court and then bring that down to the misdemeanor attorneys prosecuting and bring that education down to them so they could know what to expect in the future. And I think ultimately it makes the attorneys in county court better at practicing law.
Thank you.
Mr. Pickett?
Hi, Mr. Peacock.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Obviously, you have significant experience, life experience as a police officer and criminal experience as a prosecutor. There is some suggestion through the chief judge that whoever gets appointed to this position may have a temporary assignment in circuit court handling family cases. How would you be prepared to handle that, and how would you approach that assignment if you were appointed?
Well, I think I would approach it like I've approached everything in my career that's new. Throughout my career, every new step up requires some new knowledge that you have to acquire. When I was on the road and became a detective, I studied for 2 weeks to get the knowledge that it was required to become a detective. When you're here in the state attorney's office, you start in misdemeanor court and you gain the knowledge to prosecute felonies. Then you gain the knowledge to prosecute sex crimes. Then you gain the knowledge to prosecute HFO. All of that is a learning curve. So although my experience has been only criminal, I think the aspect of learning new aspects, even of criminal law, would be the same. So for family law, of course, there's CLEs offered. There's, I'm sure, treatises to read. It would be an adjustment, and it would be hard work at first, I would imagine, compared to going onto a criminal bench that I'm used to. But I think I've demonstrated throughout my career that I'm up for the challenges of hard work, and I would do what it takes, put in the time that it takes to do it well, and to meet the needs of that docket when I get there.
Thank you.
Ms. Fallon?
Hi, good afternoon, Mr.
Hi, how
Peacock.
are you?
See you again. You came before us just a couple of months ago, and you were able to go up to the governor's office. Is there any additional insight you have now coming before us again that you didn't have before regarding an appointment to the bench?
I think it's just a matter of preparedness. When it's your first time, you have no idea what these questions are going to entail at either level. and truthfully, they're very different. These questions are more of a personal nature, whereas at the governor's office, it was more judicial philosophy type questions. And truthfully, I'm not going to say I wasn't prepared, because I prepared across the board, but every question was about judicial philosophy. So any of the cases that I had studied beforehand or any of the opinions really didn't matter. And so that was kind of a waste of time. So I think I've gathered the ability to know what everybody's looking at, from the governor's office down to the local commission. And, that makes it a little bit easier this time.
Thank you.
Mr. Robinson?
Good morning, Mr. Peacock. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
My question is, obviously this time now, this pandemic has been very chaotic. There's been a pretty steep learning curve. There's been a ton of probably legal and constitutional issues thrown at you. What do you think that your takeaway from all this is? And do you think, how much of that do you think you would apply to being a judge if you became one?
So I feel, as I have felt even as a police officer, I've gone through a number of various very serious issues that have happened in this country. I was a police officer during 9/11. We had a blackout that Mr. Dowdy might remember up in Michigan a couple years after that. It blacked out the whole East Coast and everybody thought it was a terrorist attack. And I was called into work in order to solve problems there. And that's what I've been doing as a division chief here at the state attorney's office. I come into work every day because every day seems to be a new challenge. Truthfully, I don't know that we're doing enough. It seems like we could be doing more through these video chats, through phone conferences. It seems like the dockets could be moving a little bit more. They seem to have come to a complete standstill. I appreciate Judge Lemonitis. We've had very big dockets our days that we're allowed in front of the video camera for the jail. And I'm having my people here continue to do state attorney investigations through the telephone. So it feels like we're at a time, and these issues that arise in America always bring out new ideas and better technologies. And I think that the court system within this next month is probably going to come up with some of those new ideas so we can get things at least moving. And that's what I would like to implement, especially at the county court level.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's good seeing you.
Ms. Delgado?
Yes. Good afternoon. How are
Hello.
you doing?
Good. Thank you.
So since the last time that we've had the opportunity to interview you, what have you done outside of the application to prepare for this county court seat?
Well, truthfully, like I said, I've studied a lot more about judicial philosophy. That was a concept that I didn't really grasp before I decided to run for judge or seek an appointment. And I see that it's very important. Now, saying that, I think people's background and the way you live your life basically dictates what kind of judicial philosophy you have. I don't think you can pick a judicial philosophy and make yourself be like that. So I think I've always had the background of a certain judicial philosophy of rule of law. It's kind of ironic. Commissioner Gerber asked me at the end of the last series of questions what was my favorite or Supreme Court justice, which threw me for a loop at the time he was asked. And I mentioned Justice Thomas of the United States Supreme Court. And since the last time, I've read a number of Supreme Court opinions and really do think that I have that same judicial philosophy of the text is the text of the law, and that's what it should be. That's what should be applied. And so I think I've focused in these last couple of months of really studying, listening to lectures, reading certain opinions that show what other justices' judicial philosophy is, and that's kind of what I focused on.
Okay, thank you for your response. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's good seeing you.
Mr. Dowdy?
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Peacock.
Hello, it's good seeing you, sir.
Good. We lost the childhood hero this week in Al Kaline.
Oh, it's sad, isn't it? My son got to see him at Lakeland 2 years ago, and they had canceled batting practice, and Al Kaline came out and signed autographs for people that were there for the batting practice but had to miss it. And so we got his picture and a baseball. So I guess that's a plus.
Well, yes, it's good. It's a sad day for Tigers fans.
Yes.
Mr. Peacock, I know you're in a supervisory capacity at the state attorney's office. Have you been involved with the administration and with the cases, and how are things going over there?
Well, I was thinking that this was going to come up, and I can't talk for other divisions, but for my division, I think it's going very well. We have a good rapport with the public defender's office. We're in constant contact with them. We're trying to resolve cases that need to be resolved. And then I say that I've directed my attorneys to relook at cases, reassess them, and under the conditions, do they need to be addressed through, a lighter plea offer or, stipulating to a bond. So that's what I'm focused on. And that's what I said. I come in daily because that changes on a daily basis, it seems like, with a new order but we're all in contact through instant messenger here. I have a attorney who's, high risk, 70 years old and prior medical. So I take his cases for him on the days that we're in the video room. And I try to get him to stay home as much as he can because, I'm not going to have that on me making him come in. So we've been pretty in contact. I think we're still moving our docket as much as we can. And I'm hoping that gets better as time goes on.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ballantyne?
Good afternoon.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Great, thank you.
So, having been through the process before, and I'm sure some of the names on there seem familiar to you, either from prior process or just in general knowledge. Among those on the list, who would you say, is a great candidate for this position besides yourself?
And you forget, I have the sheet. This is probably a benefit of being on the camera, is you can have the sheet in front of you. It's hard for me to answer because I'm not, I've never thought of it that way. I don't know a lot of the magistrates. I think there's a few on here, and I think that they would have, that would be a benefit to have that experience. I know the prosecutors and their experience, they're very experienced. So, and I know Ms. Tynan as a defense attorney. So I think if I had to, from my knowledge of people, which is I know Kathy Spiker very well. I know what she's done here at the office. I know her work ethic. So I guess I would have to go with that one just based on my knowledge of everybody on the list.
All right. Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you preempted my question about whether you can reconsider your judicial philosophy since your interview in Tallahassee.
Yeah, I didn't reconsider it. I've developed it, I would say.
Okay. All right. Well, we're a little bit early, but we did see you last time. So if you have a minute or two where you'd like to address anything you think we should know, let us know.
Well, I think I would have said in my opening, if I thought there was enough time, that my public service career from police officer to here, I've sworn to uphold the Constitution in all of my careers. I take that very seriously. I think the administration of justice needs to be equal for all. I've tried to exercise that throughout my career in both law enforcement and as a prosecutor. I think I have a good reputation on that part of being fair, listening to both sides, and being able to take both sides and apply it to the rule of law. And I think that's what makes me a good candidate for judge.
Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate your application.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Great. Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks.